Pushing from here.
I'll check.
So let's ask our attorney, who's our attorney,
Yeah,
Santa Cruz.
I'll check with Barbara.
Some of it is around there. Reduce some level of workload and also. Sure. I just feel like we're going
And then we're bored and give them. Share the good.
You got sleep on. Oh, no. Yeah. Six o'clockers. Sorry, one of the six different. Studying them.
That's how I was talking about it.
Another one would show up. So,
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
yeah,
I could swear it is.
yes, it's showing porn on the. Oops. Who'd have thought the housing element had so much interest?
I've had so much difference on that.
Our meeting got zoomed on last night, our housing element. We have to shut it down.
I've lost the mouse.
Somebody.
I can't take my down.
And then we just like,
Oh, Indies or
Up there.
well, housing element, we're trying to go there.
Oh,
I know. There we
No,
go.
whatever, it was some place of high school kids.
Are we-
And then
Yeah,
So you like, it wasn't like a whole bunch of.
it was. porn.
Now zoom's up there.
Porn bit up on the-
drag it down.
What?
Your head
Just go over it.
goes back
Yeah, but you can
doors.
drag that down.
Well, yeah. Especially in a public meeting, where you're letting.
I
They
can't.
can walk through, but they still.
That's true.
We did see analysts thing. One of analysts, yeah, can't turn the camera.
They did that.
My 15-year-old will find a way around that in probably
Yeah.
3 minutes.
It was a webinar, yeah, so it was, yeah, it should have blocked it.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to go or?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we'll call to order the Santa Cruz Libraries Facilities Financing Authority meeting. Can we have a roll call?
Director Hofbaker,
Sure.
Director Goldstein,
Here,
Director Lago here, Chair Palacios.
Here. And are there any additional materials or any additions and deletions to the agenda?
Chair, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda or additional materials.
Okay. So we'll go on to item number 4, which is oral communications. Do we have any oral communications from the room? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
There are no online public comments.
Okay. So we will move on to item number 5, which is the library director report.
Thank you, Chair. My library director's report is included in your agenda packet for your review. I'll just call to your attention. We did successfully reopen this grant supporting library. The turnout was really wonderful. We had over 800 people turn out on that day. And the neighborhood is really pleased to have this branch back open. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you for the report. We'll go ahead and move on to the consent calendar, which it looks like it's just the minutes. Any questions or items on the consent from the board? Any public comments on the consent agenda? Any comments online?
There are no online public comments.
Okay. Take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll now move on to general business, which is Library Facilities Financing Authority budgets for 23-24. And the recommendation is to adopt the LFFA final budget for 2023-2024. Staff report.
Good morning. I've been moved by the microphone. Edith Driscoll, your treasurer controller. And as Mr. Palacios just stated, we're bringing back to you the final budget. The budget is exactly as was presented to you previously when we discussed that at our last meeting. The document is completely attached. If there's any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the budget? Seeing none. Any comments from the room? Any online?
There are none on mine.
Okay, so we will take a motion to approve the LFFA budget for 23-24.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, we've adopted the budget. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 8, which is project updates and comments by board members. Do we have any comments? I just had a question about the timing of the bond issuance. Do you have any sense for that yet?
Yolanda, you want to comment on that? I know that you've been in communication with Kathy and Bonnie Lipscomb on our team, as well as with Driscoll in your office as we start thinking through timeline.
Sure, and I'm happy to have Edith Driscoll chime in here because her office has spoken with the City of Santa Cruz about that.
Yes, and so as we continue to just remind folks, whenever your team decides that they're ready to issue a bond, the next step would be for them to come back to your board and authorize me to move forward. We already have contracts in place with our municipal advisor, Suzanne Harrell and Company, and usually takes about 3 months. So really, that's just the timing. Because of the time of how long it takes and when you may want to begin, I've mentioned before, you may just need to do a special board meeting just simply to authorize myself to move forward with initiating the bonds.
Okay.
So 3 months, give or take,
So
whenever you want to start.
no firm timeline yet, but this fiscal year, I'm assuming.
That's the plan, and it also has to do with weaving it with some of the other funding streams that we're currently pursuing and have already secured. So it's been a little bit challenging to kind of thread the needle and have the other funding streams sync up with when we go out. So
Yes.
On that topic, I don't think I know how the budget is looking. I understand it's your library, but given the potential sizing of the bond, are you guys in a position where you think you've identified the funding necessary to get the project done?
yes.
That's great news.
Yeah, and we can bring a more robust update on where the project stands and where the project budget is pacing, but we're in good shape. It's just a matter of trying to get some of the funding streams fully secured, including one of the state library grants that we're pursuing.
I don't know that I would need an update at this board unless the other directors would want it, but like a memo from staff kind of summarizing just sort of project timelines, funding. I'm sure you guys already have that. You probably can cut and paste from something you've taken your city council.
We can absolutely bring a written FYI update to the board.
Yeah.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's no action on that. Do we have any let me see, we have coming scheduled meetings. The next meeting will be in Boulder Creek Branch Library. So then I guess that's the end of our meeting. We'll go ahead and adjourn the LFFA meeting. Okay, we'll call to order the Joint Powers Authority meeting. We'll go ahead and have a roll call.
Director Halfaker,
Here.
Director Goldstein,
Here.
Director Lago. Here. Chair Palacios.
Here. And we'll go ahead and ask if there's any additional materials or any additions or deletions to the agenda.
Chair Palacios, there are no additional materials and there are no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Okay. And do we have any oral communications from the public?
There are no online public comments.
There are no online and there's no one in the room. So we'll go on to the report from the library director.
Thank you, Chair Palacios. I've included my report in your packet for your review. I'll just call your attention to a couple of items. One, we were just talking about this. The City of Santa Cruz has submitted the Building Forward Infrastructure Grant on the new downtown library. That was due to be put in May 18th. They made that deadline, and so we are awaiting word on whether that grant has been accepted. We did submit for the full 10 million. Unfortunately, there are about $546 million in requests that are being made of the state library with 176 million available. So we're really being positive that we're going to get that grant. In addition, I just recently learned the California legislature has agreed to continue with the 100 million additional towards infrastructure grants. That was to be split into thirds, so 33 million this year, next year, and the year following. That now has been pushed back, but there will still be the 100 million available, and that will take place in 25, 26, and 27 now. Just to update you on that. Our library team we've got some new branch managers that are starting downtown as in Sani, at Capitola, Mary Pekinas, and at Scotts Valley, Razel Davidson. So we're really pleased to welcome them to our libraries. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, any questions comments from the board? If not, this is just a report, so there's no action. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item. It's just a report by the Friends of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. Please.
Good morning, Chair Palacios. Good morning, members of the board. Nice to see you again. As you know, as Director Wilburn said, we celebrated the reopening of Grant Supporty a couple of weeks ago. The Friends put on the donor night the evening before the event. It was really remarkable. It was the largest donor event we've had so far. Typically, we have a few major donors. As you may remember, we kind of crowdfunded the children's room in honor of Allison Ender, and the people who did that asked us to invite everybody, and they had 170 donors. And so we had something like 50 to 60 people here for a donor event. It was very moving hearing people talk about Ms. Ender and her commitment to the county and the community. We also had other major donors here, including our friends from New Leaf Community Markets, for whom the teen room is named, and who also provided the food, and we're very grateful for that as well. We provided a check this month for $9,500. We talked about this last month, to the library for some of the summer reading program activities. We are also positioned to provide a check for a little over $50,000 for the summer reading program, Recover and Thrive, which I believe is in your information about that is in your meeting packet, as well as a check the board approved an expenditure of $394,000 to go to the library and then to the county for the Aptos branch renovation. I thought I'd just take a moment to clarify kind of how we get to those numbers. You'll recall that we set up a plan to raise $1 million in 2021 for this branch, Garfield Park and Aptos. Of that, $470,000 was to go to Aptos. After costs of fundraising, that meant we would be delivering about $432,000 to the county for the Aptos branch. At the end of the first year, at the end of 2021, we were actually at we had $426,000 that had come in hand. Less cost, that gets the $394,000. Since then, we've had other pledges paid off, as well as additional funds raised. My goal was to be able to get us to 470 after we took out the fundraising costs. We didn't quite get there, but we got pretty close. We're at 497,000 right now, which means that in addition to this 394,000, which has already been through our financial closure and moved into an asset account ready to be spent, we'll have another about $62,000 for Aptos by the end of the year. We'll probably have it sooner than that. It's just going through final closure of the book. So that's where the money comes from. It means total we'll be giving about $456,000 towards the building of Aptos, which we're very excited about. And about the only other thing I would comment on is that we have our annual meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. And it appears that we'll be moving forward with the same leadership team into the next year as we have had in the last couple of years. So we're pleased about that. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much. I know the work you did at this branch in particular was very impressive and quite a happening.
Yes.
So it's really, really a great thing. And thank you very much for your efforts on that. And thank you for your efforts on the Aptos library. I drove by it just yesterday and it's getting there. It's pretty impressive.
Yep.
So that's a good thing.
We look forward to another party.
Yeah. Remind me what the goal is for the Santa Cruz main library?
We're looking at 2 million
2 million.
for the downtown library. We, again, I should note, we have, this afternoon, we'll be reviewing the first of the proposals that we've gotten from consulting organizations to work with us. We're looking at a quiet period over the next few months while we build up kind of the base. We do have one, let me call it, substantial commitment to the campaign. We are looking for 2 kind of anchor donors, and we've got one of those nailed down already. So that's where we are.
All right. Any comments or questions from the board?
Is Santa Cruz considering a naming opportunity for the entire building branch? I mean, that may be a question. directed to Matt.
We went through with Jason and the library management team, looking at the various naming opportunities. And no, right now, we're not looking at one for the library as a whole. Although if somebody came up and said, hi, I've got $5 million, yeah, we'd certainly talk to them. The major, and I don't have those in front of me, but I mean, the major naming opportunities are the mezzanine and outdoor garden is one obvious one. The children's room is another. I think we came up with something like 12 to 14 naming opportunities, ranging sort of from the kind of $200,000 level down to the $10,000 to $20,000 level. So I think that'll work well for us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
All right,
Okay,
thank you
very much. And there's no action on that item. We'll move to the report by the Library Advisory Commission.
Chair, it looks like our commission chair, Mike Tomini, is not here today. So I do not believe we have a report.
Okay. We'll go ahead and move on then to the consent calendar. Do we have any comments or questions from the board on the consent calendar? Seeing none, do we have any comments from the public, either in the room or online, on the consent?
There are no online public comments.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent is approved. We'll go ahead and move on to general business. And item A is the issuance of a request for proposal. The staff recommendation is to accept and authorize the issuance of a request for proposal to research and recommend an administrative support model along with associated costs. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Palacios. This item is a motion to approve our issuing a request for proposals in conjunction with the City of Santa Cruz. As you recall, at our last meeting, we had a discussion a little bit about with regard to our budget, cost allocations. The current service agreement that we're using actually expired in June of 2018. However, the City of Santa Cruz has continued to honor that agreement. And so they have agreed to honor that through 2025 when we renegotiate the memorandum of the MOE agreement for the cost allocations that each of the cities and county pay. So we have included in this packet the information about scope of the project. We've gone through and spoken with various city departments and library staff on the work that each side or each party does. with regard to library services. So our hope is that we can get a good cost analysis on what the value of those services are. You know, in the past, we've not had anything that said sort of like a ticketing system that you do with IT, where you say, hey, I need my computer fixed, right? Okay, we need to replace a modem, right? Or something like that. There's a fee for that they can charge. We don't have any type of agreement like that. And so this RFP is really to hire a consultant to kind of determine what those costs should be, what are appropriate costs, and then we will bring that back to this board with recommendations on a variety of different cost models that they might possibly propose.
Okay. Do we have comments or questions from the board? Second.
I have a comment.
Mhm.
So I know I brought this up before, but at the 911 board meeting, when we were approving our budget, we talked a little bit about this work the library was going to be doing in a potential partnership with the 911 center. And so I just want to continue to reiterate sort of my hope that while this analysis looks at doing everything administrative within the library, continuing a relationship with Santa Cruz, what the right cost would be for that we do also find a way to look at what the administrative needs are at 911. And I don't serve as the city's representative on the ASA board, but I would assume they're sort of in the same boat. And so if in this proposal, there's optional extra costs that would be borne by those entities or something, I guess I don't know that the library should bear all the costs associated with something like that, but request that we continue to research that and include it as one of the options, and whether or not those other agencies should be kicking in a small portion as well, would seem appropriate to me.
I'm happy to move forward with that, and actually we'll be scheduling a meeting in a couple of weeks to meet with someone from 911 to have kind of that discussion about our preliminary stages and then what that might look like as a possibility of what could be explored through this proposal.
Good. Well, thank you.
As you know, the ASA, the animal shelter, is moving to a standalone JPA from being under the county. And it's, of course, that's a simpler move because it's less employees and so forth. But it's interesting that actually, from PERS point of view, they want that. That's what they want. They don't want people to be, employees of a city, but they're really not. They're employees of the JPA. They really want that. But yet, it took a ton of work to get to PERS to realize we're complying with your policy. And they're like, well, and we wanted, of course, nobody to lose their status under PERS. That was the big issue. So in the end, we're able to do that. So we worked through it. We had to hire a consultant, and we had to prove to them this was their own policy. And then now the idea is to take the accrued unfunded liability and apportion it. That's the only issue left remaining, but it should be fairly small. So in any event, I think it is, I don't know if we want to go that far, but it is something to look at because they are going to have their own, they still are going to, I imagine, contract with the county for some of their services for their accounting, and similar to what the 911 center does. They contract with the county for their payroll and accounting and so forth. But there could be, I would hope that whoever the consultant is, that they interview each of us and that we stay in touch with each of them so that we can have input, because I could see a hybrid model also, where there may be a way to form some kind of standalone JPA for some of the tasks and maybe not all of them. The difficulty, like in this case, is that they're City of Santa Cruz employees or the library people are, so it would be hard to separate that piece off. But you could separate off the accounting, the budgeting, the IT, and there might, so it may be, it's a hybrid model might be an option, especially if you're combining it with the 911 center and with the animal shelter, and maybe having one sort of, as Jamie has talked about, one sort of administrative entity that does that. So anyway, I just want to make sure that whoever we select interviews each of us and talks to us so that we can have some input into how they're going to research the models.
Absolutely, and that is what we're looking for out of this analysis, someone to really look at, is an administrative JPA an option? Is it the best option staying with the city? Is it some other hybrid model? We'd like them to come back to us with a variety of different options, and then again, we'll bring those to the board. But we do intend to keep the board informed all along the way. The consultant will be, as a part of this, required to provide regular updates. We anticipate this process is going to take at least a year. Realistically, there's a lot to really look into. As you said, is there the CalPERS obligations? We also have been in conversations with our labor unions because we know they play an important role in this. So we want to make sure that they are represented as we proceed with someone on our committee, as we're picking the RFP and those types of things. So we just want to make sure we're including everyone, providing regular updates to all stakeholders, and then again, trying to figure out what are the variety of different models we could use, and then we'll bring those back to the board with a committee making a recommendation. But of course, this board will have the option to say, yeah, we like this other option better, but we'll leave that up to the board once we have that full analysis.
Just a quick comment to respond to Jamie and Carlos's points. The RFP was intentionally structured to run those questions to ground, and I just appreciate that Yolande and Laura on my staff were really intentional about ensuring that that scope is built in so that there's opportunities for us to look at this more broadly outside of just the library JPA. I also think there's a lot of good reasons why we're finally running this to ground. There's been kind of some longstanding, at times, cumbersomeness related to how we're supporting all of our JPAs, and if there's an opportunity for us to scale that in a way that ensures that all the agencies' needs are being met, but also that those services are being accurately tracked from a cost and services standpoint. So look forward to helping to support it, and appreciate again the work to bring it forward.
Okay, any other comments? If not, we'll go to the public. Any public comments on this item? And online, anything?
There are no online public comments.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a motion to approve the issuance of the RFP.
I authorize the issuance of the RFP as proposed by Scott. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved. Thank you very much. We'll move to item B, which is Link Plus presentation. And this is by Sarah Harbison.
Hi, good morning, board chair. My name is Sarah Harbison. I'm the manager of Collection Management Services. I'm just going to adjust my chair so I can see the screen as well. I'm here to give just a collections update and introduce you to Link Plus, which is a service that we will be exploring this year.
I'm sharing it. There you go.
Okay. Here we go. So first, I just wanted to start with a temperature check of our collection. So this is some information from Collection HQ, which is a collection performance tool that we use at the library. So this just shows the past couple of years of our circulation numbers and turnover. And as you can see, there's a trend upward for our circulation numbers. And then turnover is the circulation divided by the number of items that we have in our collection. And you'll notice there is a slight downward trend there, and that is likely due to us adding so many more items to the collection, especially for the new branches that are opening. We've been ordering a lot of materials for those branches. And this is data from all audiences, so adults, teens, and kids collections, and it's system-wide, so all the branches. I did take a look at the different audiences alone, so adult and teen and kids, and they all are very similar in trajectory to this one. Another thing we like to look at is something called dead on arrival. So this collection performance tool, Collection HQ, recommends that we have a rate of between 5 and 10% of items that don't circulate within the first few months of arriving at the library. So we're actually doing pretty good here. 88% of our collection is circulating really well when it comes in. So that's an indication that we are selecting materials that are relevant and of interest to our patrons. Anything less than 5% means we're really focusing just on the very popular items. And we're missing out on the breadth and depth of materials in our collection that we want. And of course, anything more than 10% means that maybe we should reevaluate the kinds of materials that we're selecting and make sure we're getting things that our community actually wants to check out. And I've included here the top circulating collections, just because it's really interesting to see what kinds of things people are really interested in checking out at the library. So this first chart is adult fiction, and the top three, of course, are fiction, mystery, and science fiction. Fiction is ahead by far. So this data is over the past year. And adult nonfiction biographies pull way ahead for nonfiction. And this is teen fiction. So the teen fiction books are the most popular, followed closely by the graphic novels. And large print made the top three for teen. And kids fiction, it's by far the picture books. We buy so many picture books, and we really are just barely meeting demand for the amount of picture books that get checked out. So it's about 160,000 picture books. And I just want to go back just to show in comparison to the adult fiction books, which is about 120. So those picture books are the most popular in our collection, followed by fiction, which are the chapter books, those J chapter books, and then the beginning chapter books. And kids nonfiction, zoology, those animal books are very popular, followed by biography, and then mammals. So the zoology is everything except for mammals. And this is how we've been spending our materials budget for the past 5 years. So physical is everything that we receive in the mail or in shipment to the library. So that's the books, the DVDs, the audiobooks, the magazines. All of that is included in physical spending. And then the digital is the ebooks, the e-audiobooks, streaming videos, streaming music, and the digital magazines as well. So Overdrive and Hoopla are included in there. And you can see in fiscal year 2021 there, we had a significant increase in our digital spending, and that was during the pandemic, especially when the Friends helped us out so much with some fundraising for e-materials during that time. We had a little uptick in our percentage of physical spending this past year. And again, that was likely due to all the purchasing we've been doing for the opening branches and getting new materials on their shelves. But I expect the trend to continue to have more digital spending in future fiscal years. The demand is really growing. And yeah, that's what we're looking like for physical versus digital. Just a quick recap of recent branch openings. These are not the most beautiful photos of each branch that I chose, but I tried to choose a photo that showed the empty shelves in each branch before they open, since we're looking at a collections update here, and it was our role to fill those shelves with books and materials. So this is Boulder Creek. And with each recent branch opening, we've introduced a local history collection. So it's a collection of mostly books, a few DVDs that will stay at that branch. They can be checked out, they can be placed on hold, but they'll always return to that branch. So of course, Boulder Creek has books on Boulder Creek history and San Lorenzo Valley, as well as Santa Cruz County. So we really tried to make each local history collection reflective of the local area and neighborhood area for each branch. And that local history photo there is the sticker that we put on the spine of those local history books. So they're easily identifiable and they each have a special spot on the shelf. So they're all together for patrons to find. And Scotts Valley opened as well. And again, we introduced a local history collection for Scotts Valley and refreshed their SNRC collection, which is the Special Needs Resource Center collection, which is books and some DVDs for parents and caregivers of those with special needs. And the Live Oak Library, of course, got a local history collection. And then we also introduced the lendable ukuleles with the Live Oak Company. And those have been really well received. And so far, we have not had to replace any strings, which my team is very pleased that they haven't had to do that. And we haven't seen any damage. So it's really been wonderful that we've made it, gosh, almost a year without seeing any damage to those instruments. And then here we are at the Branson 40 Library. So these shelves are in the kids' room. So just the next room over here, we did a mostly new collection. And of course, we included that local history collection. And we are ordering for the Aptos Library now. We've got over 100, probably close to 200 cartons of books stored for us in a warehouse, ready to ship soon as we give the word that we're ready. The selectors have been working on this for months now of selecting materials and working with the collection development team and our vendor to select materials. We're also ordering new audiobooks and DVDs as well for that branch. And so looking ahead at the materials budget this coming year, we are going to spend out the McCaskill Trust for Visually Impaired. So for decades, we've just been spending the interest on that fund and purchasing, it used to be a lot of Braille books and what they would call talking books. So those are the audio books. And so we will try to buy Braille. That's a little hard to find now. But also large type books, audio books, which are both the CD and playaway format. And then we're also including the e-audiobooks and ebooks for the McCaskill Trust. And each physical item, of course, we can't do it with the ebooks or e-audiobooks, but each physical item, the book or the CD or playaway, gets a little plate inside that says, kind of hard to read, but it says presented to the Santa Cruz Public Libraries by the Annie McCaskill Trust for the Visually Impaired. And now I wanted just to give a brief introduction to what Link Plus is. And it's free to patrons. And it is a resource that allows our card holders to borrow materials from other participating libraries of things that we don't have in our collection. And then the reverse is true, that it would allow other participating libraries patrons to borrow our materials as well. And we can opt in for just books or books and media. So that would include audiobooks and DVDs as well. There are many many public libraries and some academic libraries throughout California and Nevada. It's a lot of Northern California and Bay Area libraries that participate in this. So it's only for materials that are available. So if there's something, say, at another library that our patron wants, but there aren't any available copies, they don't get to place a hold on it necessarily. And then same, other libraries patrons wouldn't be able to place holds on our materials. They do have a load balancing algorithm just to prevent us from being overloaded from too many borrows. So they try to keep it so that our borrows and our loans are somewhat equal, so that we're not overburdening another library or being overburdened ourselves. Usually requests are delivered within 4 to 7 business days. I've heard it's pretty quick. There's a courier service that works and delivers and picks up between all the participating libraries. And And yeah, and it allows searching from the library catalog. So I just wanted to show a graphic that kind of shows how the courier service works. It's a spoke and hub. So there are some libraries that will take materials and sort them and then send them out to smaller libraries. So it looks something like this. And so there are a lot of benefits. It really opens up other libraries' collections to our patrons. So if there's something that we don't have, then there's a very good chance that they could get it quickly from another library. It does take some resources though. There is the InReach module that we would pay for, and that's the resource sharing tool that allows the multiple libraries catalogs to interact and allow access. It does take staff time. It would take staff time to pull those materials from the shelves for other libraries, and then staff to receive and sort the materials that are both incoming and outgoing, and someone to manage that and manage the communication, the troubleshooting, the reports, the gathering statistics, things like that. And there's a courier service, as I mentioned, that we would pay for, and then also some supplies, just some upfront supplies like pouches and bins, and special flags for it. So it's it's something that we're looking at this year and considering, and that's all I have, but I'm happy to take any questions.
I would just add to Sarah's report, thank you, Sarah. The Link Plus system is one of those one-time funding items that we are sinking the cost this year to get the program started. After that, it's just the ongoing costs of the courier service and your supplies that you have. We already do have the Polaris system, and so I does work with Polaris, which makes it a seamless process for our patrons, where they can just go to the catalog. If they type in a search and we don't have it, they will get a button that says, would you like to see if that's available through Link Plus? They can click on that, and then they can see what other libraries have it and say, place that order for me. It's sort of similar to the interlibrary loan process, but patrons don't pay a fee for that. So they can do it from their catalog instantly without having to call the library or go into the library and say, hey, ILL librarian, can you order this? Can you look around and see where that book is? So it makes it a really seamless process. And the feedback that myself, and I asked Sarah to go out and do a lot of research on this, have learned is patrons absolutely love this service because it does expand the breadth of materials that they have available. And as Sarah stated, some of that is even from academic libraries, which is great.
Other questions?
Just a quick comment, as a young lad now, more than 20 years ago, doing research on urban sprawl, had a lot of use of Link Plus in an academic setting, and just found it to be terrific. So I really see it as being an investment in expanding our collections overall. Obviously, some additional cost for our own operations as we're responding to those requests, but kind of see that as it being a wash as we think about the other library systems that will also be contributing to our patrons. So I just appreciate pursuing the option and look forward to seeing it added to our system.
Two questions. Link Plus, it's really interesting. I'm curious if the analysis on like the per book cost, because it sounds like a lot of work, right? It's like there's a book that somebody here wants and it's in Sacramento. It just sounds like a lot of people have to touch it before it shows up here and someone says, here's your book. Is that, have you guys looked at the cost of just saying, well, we could just buy it, right?
So I think there are a lot of different opportunities here. Another program that the state library offers is the zip books. So zip books is one of those where patrons, if we don't have the book, patrons could say, hey, this is available on Amazon, we would order it. It would be mailed to their house. So that's one option. And then they can return it to us. The problem is we don't have shelf space. So house everything.
I was thinking that it could be just the pure storage. It's like, yeah, sure, we could buy it for about the same price, but where would we put it?
Correct. And so we don't want to purchase materials and then immediately
Yeah.
turn them over to the friends or something where we're not able to stock that resource. And it's typically not something that's heavily used, right? Sarah talked about our collection and we have that 8% DOA rate. We'd love to see that go lower, but again, we are carrying a breadth of materials. Some of it may not circulate, but at any given time, we don't necessarily have the shelf space to take in a lot of extra items, especially if they're only circulating 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. Second question, and this is probably a little wonky, but in your first slides, you're showing checkout by sort of different genre. I noticed that the scale changed pretty significantly at the bottom. In some cases, we were looking at bars that were going to 150,000 checkouts. In other cases, the scale was 15,000, like 1/10. When you overlay the same scale on that, I think you would end up seeing it was like, wasn't it children's picture books were at around 150,000 checkouts, and then adult fiction, I think, were the two that were really high, but some of the other ones were significantly lower. Do you look at that sort of thing? And then when you're looking at where we spend our collections budget and sort of weigh those different things, and then also probably weighing, from my standpoint, I might think as one board member, maybe kids' picture books, if they're getting 150,000 checkouts a day or a year, and then, that's what we were looking at for adult fiction. Maybe we're spending more on kids' picture books because we have more of an opportunity to help, help someone grow as a young child, having access to, great books. Adults were all kind of ossified, so. But do you look at that kind of thing? Like look at the sort of the overall, like, okay, this is where the books are actually going, where's their spend, the ratios, those kinds of things? Are there some policy decisions, I imagine, built into those kinds of analysis and the decisions that are made?
Yeah, absolutely. So that tool Collection HQ actually has a spending plan module. So it'll look at
This
the
exact
number,
question.
exactly. So the number of checkouts that certain things are getting. And then you could just type in, usually I just put like 100,000 just to get the percentages of the budget. And then it'll recommend what percent of the budget would fall to each type of item.
Do we make some policy decisions there? Because there's sort of probably the recommendation based on some basic metrics, but like, do we say, well, let's more heavily weight children's books or nonfiction because, local history is important for us or things like that? Are there some decisions like that built in?
There
I will say that